Welcome back to another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, S.J. Munoz with you to talk the world of sports and wagering and have some fun with you. Glad you're back along with us here again this week as we're going to move into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We had Wild Card weekend that wrapped up. We'll talk about that and talk about our picks. We've got some topics to touch on in the college football world as well, which is, of course, usually our primary subject, and we'll have plenty of those things come up throughout the year. But SJ, it's been one hell of a week around these parts. It's been cold as hell, and we've had all kinds of damn snow in my parts, so it's been a rough ride.
Yeah, it's freaking kind of wild. It doesn't matter where you live, really. Like, of course, the middle of the country, or even a little bit upper Midwest, so kind of used to this stuff. But it's hitting everywhere. It seems like despite what that one reporter asked, and Detroit, it's not going to be an issue this weekend as far as we know, because they do. The Bulls reminded her they do play in a dome, but we can scratch that later. But yeah, it's getting crazy, and I mean, honestly, like, you hate to see it affect the games, but I mean, it is part of football, and it's just definitely makes for some interesting viewing. But I mean, I would like a little bit closer to ideal, but you got to play the games when you got to play them. So I mean, that's just the way it goes with football.
Yeah, it certainly did creep into the NFL here this past weekend in a number of parts of the country, so we're going to touch on that as well. Yeah, here in our area, I mean, we got the brunt of the damn storm last Thursday, Friday. I mean, Friday was friggin' brutal. And it's just now, like today, around here, some of the rural county roads, they have like a lane plowed because it's just ridiculous. Like, we had 5-6 foot drifts all over the place, and it's just been brutal trying to dig out of this shit. And we're supposed to have some more coming up here tomorrow. So lucky us. Welcome to winter.
That's the thing too. It's one thing when you get a half foot or a foot of snow, and unfortunately in the area I'm in, it takes a couple 3 inches and you're screwed. It's amazing how it's not a lot, and I get there's a lot more roads. There's different things that factor into it, but it's just amazing how you kind of just forget every year until it pops up again. How I guess undermanned we are. I don't know how you want the term used, but how unprepared, I guess, would be the better term, we are for winter weather. And yeah. I know we've been lucky in this area, Kansas City region. The winters have been pretty nice the last few years. This is more like a typical winter, and we're seeing kind of reminding what it's really like when you actually have a winter. I'm not going to complain, though, because we don't have anywhere of the amount of snow a lot of places got. So as far as that goes, that's good. But that cold that was something else. I'm inside, for 3 or 4 days when that happens. I don't really care. I got no place to be. Like, there's plenty of delivery services and all that. I'm not leaving at all.
Yeah. I mean, Mother Nature has a good way of reminding us that she can kick our ass whenever she wants to, and she certainly has done that here this last week. And I remember, not to get too far into this, but it's just a funny memory. We both went to school in Kearney, Nebraska, and for some reason, aside from like the main thoroughfare in town, plows really weren't a thing. Like, they just never. there are multiple roads throughout the winter that just like never got plowed, and it just turns into like a ice mogul. Like, it's just wild the way different places treat this stuff, because it can be an adventure.
Yeah, I mean, especially in that part. I mean, you get a good amount of snow on a yearly basis. I guess maybe it's just a financial deal. Who knows why? Yeah. But yeah, I definitely do not miss these days. I don't see myself, unless an interesting opportunity presents itself, living north of where I am at this point. It's just, if I never see snow again, I'm good with it. That's me. I get some people like it. Even on Christmas, I don't care. Give me a palm tree, one of Jerry Kill's margaritas. That's more my desire than any type of snow.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, speaking of beverages, we of course always got some cooking with us here as we do the pod, and I happened to get lucky enough to actually get some of this just kind of gifted to me the other day. So I was like, well, okay, I'll take it. And it's actually one of the breweries that I really respect, and a lot of people respect around the country here in Iowa. The fine folks over at Toppling Goliath in Decorah. They have one in their lineup. They're not really known for this style of beer. They're kind of known more for their pale ale and those types of modes. But they've got one called Rover Truck that's an oatmeal stout. I've been on a kick of trying just about every oatmeal stout I can find here lately because of the weather, and I'm enjoying it. It's a pretty good one. Nice one to add to the rotation. How about you?
We're kind of thinking alike here today. I talked about it earlier how we were, we weren't begging for the cold, but we were asking for at least a change in season to change our beverage types. And now that it's cold, I'm in the stout world too. But I actually grabbed a coffee stout
Ooh,
from Martin City Brewing. It's I guess Kansas City area. I wouldn't consider it the metro, but South Kansas City, kind of they're out in the out on the boondocks, if you ask me. But it's a hell of a brewery, and they make a lot of good beers. This is probably one of my favorite, the stout they make. They also make a popular one called Operation Yoga Pants. If
oh,
you're interested in, kind of maybe being on a little healthier side, I believe that's like kind of like their Mick Ultra version. But that's one of the more popular ones too. But this coffee stout is real good. All the love is what it's called, the technical term, and we're looking at a 6% alcohol by volume, so we're
ooh,
doing pretty good here tonight.
nice. That'll kick you in the teeth a little bit. Yeah, I didn't look. I needed to look. Oh, here we go. Oh, this one's actually pretty tame. I'm surprised. It's 5%. So for a
Like
stout
double
that's
up then.
yeah, yeah. Well, I got another one sitting here. We're okay. Yeah, but anytime you insert the coffee into stout in the line, I'm going to be on that business for sure. Sounds delicious. We're going to roll into how we did here last week, but before we get there, I did want to throw in this topic. You brought up, of course, the fact of people that are now retired enjoying the sunny beaches and palm trees and margaritas like Jerry Kill. Well, he might have a buddy with him now because Mr. Little Debbie himself, Nick Saban, has decided to hang him up. Not something I think everybody had on their radar. We probably all thought that maybe sometime soon he would call it quits, but maybe a little bit surprising that he chose that time now. And it's certainly one of the legends of our time as far as what he was able to accomplish at Alabama. Whether you love him or hate him, he certainly had his share of success.
I'm not saying this in a bad way either. I mean, it could be good or bad, just depends on your opinion of him. But it seems a little bit fitting. He kind of just went out on his own terms, controlling. He was control freak, and that's what you got to be that good and have that much success. So it's not that part of it's not that surprising. The fact that maybe they had I mean, they made the playoffs, so you can't say too much of a disappointing season, but that they went on a losing note is maybe a little
Yeah.
more surprising. I honestly thought he was going to hang it up when they won their last title, which was a few years ago.
Hmm.
So that would have been the time I'd have been a little less surprised to see that happen. But yeah, he's been coaching for a long time. I mean, 70 plus years old. I mean, you obviously deserve to enjoy part of your life. You don't want to be grinding until the gears fall off, so to speak. So hopefully it's he kind of. I mean, I guess the way I'm looking at it, I just would kind of like to see do that and then just stay away and enjoy
Yeah.
life a little bit because that had to have been I mean, of course enjoyable with all the success you had, but it had to be a hell of an adventure and just a lot
Hmm.
of long hours and short nights for him through those all those years.
Yeah. Well, and certainly a place where you're getting a lot of pressure breathing down your neck all the
Mhm.
time. And of course, he created that himself a little bit because he had immediate success, and then yeah, that's what they expected all the time too. But pretty wild. It's just such an interesting career because he obviously did have success at the two other collegiate stops that he had along the way. The NFL thing was just kind of a bust and didn't pan out. Why, or whatever, we don't know. But he came back to Alabama, who at the time really wasn't much to speak about, and turned them back into a huge powerhouse. So yeah, pretty interesting guy, pretty interesting career, and definitely a different individual, and usually the great ones are. So he is stepping aside. Of course, we already know who's taken his place. The guy who was coaching in the national championship game on the losing end, Caleb DeBoer, decided to head out from Washington and head to the SEC and take over that Alabama job. And he's already taken his OC with him, too, it sounds like, as well. But obviously, certainly an opportunity that a lot of people would jump on. I don't know that I totally, blame him for that. But for a guy that was kind of all about, team and building up his dudes, he sure was quick to let the ship sail and head out in a different direction.
Yeah, and like always two sides to every story, but there's kind of a lot of reports coming out of the fact that how exactly the exit took place, and of course he's an adult, he can make his own choices, and that's not for us to say he should do this or do that. I mean, of course everyone's going to have their opinion, but I don't. I just think it's a. I mean, I'm not just me. A lot of people would agree with this. I think it's a very tough situation to step into. You just kind of talked about the pressure and the situation that Saban created. I mean, anything less than the playoff is failure. As it stands right now, you get 5 or 6 years down the road, that's probably going to change. But as it stands now, playoff or bust, and especially with 12 teams getting in starting next year, that's really, if you don't make the playoff, you're
Yeah.
gonna find a hot seat real quick. And I mean, I guess you know what you're getting into. You say you do, and you understand the expectations, but it's kind of one of those places. There's probably 10 or so around the country in college football that it's just a different animal. It's kind of above and beyond even what the most fanatical fan base might be.
Well, and certainly you would think an opportune time for him to make that move too. Obviously they didn't play well in that national championship game, but what hell of a season they did have there at Washington. And you're losing a lot of those guys. I mean, Michael Penix is gone. It's a different beast now that he's going to have up there too, joining a different conference. So, and who knows? Maybe in the back of his mind, his thought was, fuck no, I don't want to go play Thursday at Piscataway, New Jersey. I'm gonna go to the SEC where I don't have to travel halfway across the country. That
when you think about the recruiting too, I mean, he's got to figure there's a lot more players closer to home. He doesn't have to be so national with it. You go with 3 or 4 states one way or the other, and you could probably build your roster. Of course, the money thing, with boosters and NIL, of course, you got to figure Alabama's got much more of a comfortable setup for a coach. Not have to worry about that as much. The Uncle Johnnies will take care of all that stuff for you. So, I mean, you can look at that side and you can see the advantages. It's quite the leap, but I mean, obviously you're confident in yourself, and this is also someone who's changed jobs rather frequently. So we can't be too surprised at that. And if he's on to somewhere else within the next 5 years, we can't be surprised at that either, whether he has success or not.
Yeah. Well, and certainly a dude that found a way to climb the ladder. You go all the way from Sioux Falls, South Dakota and NAIA to one of the biggest jobs in college football. So, I guess hats off to him for making that happen in his life, if that's what his goal was. That's kind of what was going on in the college world. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more going on with the coaching carousel now, too. Obviously, Washington has got an opening, lots of things going on. So we'll keep talking about that as we move forward. But we're going to dive back in now to the NFL, and we'll touch on how we did here during the wild card weekend. As we, of course, warned you last week, too. We make it a little tougher on ourselves because we're looking at every single game and trying to predict every single game, which most wagering folks are not going to do. And it didn't really go that well for us. We hit a couple.
Well, we're also kind of messing with the spreads too. We're not taking the easy way out and just going, money line. We could do that as well. But I mean, I don't care. I don't mind taking risks. It's all in fun, whatever. But just take everything with a grain of salt. We're not there's no guarantees here. There's no locks of the week. It's it's all about making the game interesting. That's kind of when it comes to other things, like as far as I'll probably have some just to preview this, I'll have some picks on probably some UFC stuff coming up here this week. There's a big card this week, so we'll put that out on social media as well. So that'd be more the college game and stuff. And when we get maybe here in the next month or so, getting college basketball and NBA going too, then we'll get back to our winning ways. But we'll do some NFL at least for the next few weeks.
I've been going back and watching the Simpsons catalog, and if you remember, there's an episode called Lisa the Greek, where Homer gets addicted to watching the Sunday morning shows where the guys are getting their lock of the week or, the shoe-in of the week. Each one's got a different shtick, and he's buying into all of them. He's calling them like 900 number and stuff. So that's funny. We'll have to bring that up again sometime.
Yeah, too. There's some hell of gifts with that on just wherever you find your gifts, I guess. Or there's just with Mo involved too. Just
Yeah.
You can it's a good one when you can kind of when you read it or see the picture and you can hear it in that voice.
Yeah.
It's a damn good one. So that's kind of the ones I like to stick with when I'm doing my searching on that.
Oh man, good stuff. Okay, let's get in the games. Last week, Cleveland, and of course, I'm also going to say some of these games we were just as baffled as everybody else. Yeah.
Well, that's what we said. I mean, I even mentioned that when we were doing the picks last week. Everyone thinks a playoff, because we talk about college a lot. A playoff's going to solve all your problems. We mentioned NFL has its share of shit games too, and this week was a perfect example of it. No, obviously you're not taking anything away from the winning teams, but for the most part, most of these games sucked.
Yeah,
It was not competitive. As a casual observer, there's nothing interesting about it at all, and that's part of the reason we do the picks to give us something to root for. But these games were,
yeah.
awful is the best way to describe them, basically.
Yeah, there was one game that ended up close score-wise. That's it. So pretty wild. The Browns, we kind of thought that the Browns would take care of business. So they had a few weeks before against Houston. But boy, hats off to C.J. Stroud. He's having one hell of a rookie season. Came out guns a-blazing. They didn't hold anything back, and the Browns weren't ready for it. I don't know what it was, whether they were just kind of shell-shocked in the moment or if, it was kind of an off day. But, for a team, especially what is supposed to be one of the best defenses in the NFL, they really struggled, and they get pounded. 45-14 was the final. We were on the Browns, and obviously we're very wrong. But, heck of a job by Houston to kind of come out of nowhere, not only to make the playoffs, but win a game like that.
Well, and I get they were the home team, but I wouldn't exactly call it an intimidating home field advantage, and being inside also kind of that plays into the visitors' hands. You don't have to worry about the elements or any type of the terrible weather we've talked about, most of the show here to begin with. It's really hard. I don't want to get too much into our next week, but it's the way Stroud's playing. It's going to be really hard to pick against him at this point. It's kind of like he's just in the zone, and that's really hard to stop. So he didn't see that one coming in. Just the plays they were making. It's one thing to score that many points. They were just play after play. It was almost like a preseason game or like a week 1 or week 2, college football, against Roast Beef State. It was just they were just shredding that defense. That was the best defense in the league statistically.
Yeah. Yeah, and you would have thought that the pressure would have been there. It never really got to him. Everything about that game was kind of complete opposite bizarro world that I think most people thought that it would be. I think if anybody thought the Browns were going to lose, they would have thought they lost by a few points, not getting absolutely blown out.
Maybe a touchdown at the most. It was over at halftime, basically.
Yeah, it was. You could tell they were beaten. The way the body language was after that start was not fun after that. Of course, then we went on into the sub-zero temperatures in your parts there, and enough wild, crazy Kansas City Chiefs fans came out to make Arrowhead Stadium still kind of loud, and they got it done against the Dolphins and pretty much dominated from start to finish. 26-7 was the final. I was on the Chiefs. You were looking for the over there, and obviously I think the elements did play a factor into that, being so cold. And then the Chiefs' inability to kind of cap some things off in the red zone. They certainly could have scored some more points, but didn't quite get to that 44. But overall, that's really not a bad picking game for us there. And the Chiefs, I kind of had the suspicion that they would put something together when it came playoff time and play better. Now, obviously, the defense got their business together because they played very, very well and kind of made Tua just confused all night long.
He's one of the quarterbacks I don't think gets enough criticism. For some reason, he kind of just, no one ever really comes after him. And he makes a lot of bad decisions and a lot of bad throws. I think the Chiefs were they had a pretty good game plan and were ready for whatever the Dolphins had. At the same time, I think it could have been far more competitive when honestly, the Miami defense played really well, I thought.
They did.
The Chiefs settled for field goals several times. What did Butker have? 4 field goals?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was all 32 yards was the long. So he's kicking 20-yard field goals. So, they're getting deep in the red zone, and their defense is holding. So they did their part. The Dolphins just didn't. And maybe I know I'm probably talked to a lot of people that sound a little bit critical, but I'm not a fan of Tua. As a player, I don't get into this as a person, all this Hard Knocks crap, whatever. You might think he's cool, funny, as a quarterback, I don't think he's a full NFL starter.
Yeah. They had their share of kind of, big moments throughout the year. Obviously, everybody recalls the 70 points they put up in one game, and when conditions are right and they're firing on all cylinders, they can be pretty good. But I think that kind of plays in to the kind of player that he is, though, too. He's one of those guys that can, kind of sling it around and take some of those big chances. And when they connect, it's great. Sometimes it's because his guys make the play. But, when it comes down to, being very very deliberate and having to execute at a very high level, as far as picking apart a defense. That's not his game, and he certainly hasn't shown that he can do that. I mean, granted, I think Kansas City's got a pretty good defense, so not putting it all on him, but still, yeah, you have to be able to, in those situations against good teams, which they didn't do all season long, make those types of plays to win.
Yeah, and I mean the last 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season, their offense was a shell of what it was in the early going. And I mean, this isn't the Bash 2 hour. I mean, not trying to turn it into that, but you give a quarterback Mostert, Waddle, Hill. I mean, they even have tight ends back. A-Chain.
A-Chain,
You got all these weapons and friggin'. You better do something more than 7 points. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So I that's kind of where I'm at. It's just their offense, and then they got some, supposedly an offensive guru as head coach. I'm kind of I'm not convinced of that just yet myself.
Mm-hmm.
But they got it all except for a quarterback, at least in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays down the road too, as that team kind of moves forward as well. They certainly do have their share of injuries, so that didn't help them. But on the defensive side, a team that wasn't good in the red zone was for that game and gave them a chance. So
most of the injuries were on the defensive side, and the defense still found a way to be productive. So I mean, I get injuries, everybody has them, and it sucks that your starters go out and you're Pro Bowl type players, but they found a way. The offense needed to do the same and just didn't compliment them.
Yeah. The other game, we're going to move this down the line because it got moved, the Bills and the Steelers. So I'm going to skip over that one for a minute. But another one that was kind of, I think, a shocker to a lot of people. Not necessarily that one team won, but the fact that one team got absolutely blown out once again as well. The Packers absolutely dominated the Dallas Cowboys from the start of the game. They got an early 14-0 lead, and it just seemed like you were kind of waiting, like, okay, the Cowboys are going to probably make this interesting. They're going to score a couple, but boy, they never got back to like threatening in the game as far as being close to taking over. And, hats off to Jordan Love. He played one hell of a game, and those young guys really stepped up and made some plays. It almost it seems like one of those teams, certainly, where a bunch of guys that don't really have anything to lose, so they just went out there and played ball, and Dallas wasn't ready for it.
It's not like the Cowboys haven't done this before in, especially the recent years of kind of, I guess, choking is the best term to call it. Mm-hmm. But usually when that's the case, it's more of like an unpredicted type thing. I saw a lot of people saying, watch out for Green Bay, and that's why I wasn't as worried about, as the Cowboys losing. Of course, I picked them. That's why I didn't think they're going to lose. But even if they would have lost, I wouldn't have been surprised, lose by a touchdown or whatever, 3 points, late field goal, something. But, to get beat like that, and it was kind of similar to the Texans game where, I mean, receivers just running 20 yards wide open, no one with, when you're watching on TV and they show the receiver and there's no defender on the screen with him, that's not usually a good way to play defense. So, and that was basically every time they scored, other than the running plays where, Jones just had, huge running lanes all days. When they took that first drive, they took the ball to start, which I was like, okay, I mean, now got my interest. Mm-hmm. And then they go down and score. Then I was like, shit, I should have bet this live. Because I knew it was not going to be a good day for Dallas. Even if they would have won, they were definitely covering the spread at the least. And, of course, they did well more than that.
Yeah, 48-32 was the final. It wasn't even that close. The Cowboys kind of made a little charge there at the end to try to make it interesting. But, I had I went with the Packers, and when I was talking about it, I was worried about the hook. I wasn't necessarily worried about them killing them. So I went that way, and it benefited me. And you thought that the Cowboys would get it done. So yeah, we kind of split on that one. But certainly a shocker. You got to think that this is a turning point for Dallas. I mean, we've talked about this, I think, for the last 3 years. All the talking heads, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And they never really do anything. Did bring in Mike McCarthy. Now, do they want to get rid of him? I certainly probably think it's time that they move on from Dak Prescott. I mean, he's had his chances. He's not a bad player, but in those moments, he hasn't gotten it done, and that's what it is in the NFL. So I think he's probably going to see the door on the way out.
Yeah, and especially when you have, championship level aspirations, kind of similar to just my Tua take is there's only a certain, a handful of quarterbacks that are at that elite level, and they're just not one of them. And franchises like Dallas, who, that's their I mean, obviously everybody's goal is to win it all, but um, with teams where you have a very short leash when it comes to winning it all, that's you got to have a quarterback that can make the plays in the big moment. And I mean, I think we all know what the real problem is, but he's not going anywhere until he until he leaves this earth. So they're just gonna have to find a way around it. I mean, obviously, I don't know if that's possible, but they're gonna have to maybe get lucky with a draft pick or a trade, something like that.
Yeah, until he kicks the bucket, it might not be different there in Dallas for a awful long time. I know you got your eye on Hoyball over there, I'm sure, because you got one hell of a game going on with those.
Maybe just one eye, yeah. I'm trying to keep my cool here.
I know how that is. I know how I am. I'm gonna lose track. I'm lose focus. Well. And I was worried about watching my team last night, and I didn't need to be worried about that at all either because they got absolutely smoked.
Dude, that's it's a topsy turvy world that college basketball is.
It's one hell of a ride.
I mean, it's not. Not that you don't. We obviously both enjoy it, and your teams have quite a bit of success in the past, but it's so hard to. Even just with college football too, and sports in general, you see that at the pro level, it seems like more than you used to. The consistency is what makes even just with the picks we make. That's the challenge. It's just you don't from night in and night out. You don't know what you're gonna freaking get, and it's frustrating. Even I don't even care about the betting part of it. Just that as a as a fan or observer, it's just like man, all that talent, but the mind just doesn't always match up with it.
Yeah. I will say I was a little disappointed the other night when my team decided to do a nice thing and win at home against the number 2 team in the country that hadn't lost yet. And then later in the evening, your team decides to go ahead and beat the number 1 team in the country as well. So you're going to steal that spotlight. And of course, it's with
followed up with a loss, so that's the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. We did that too. Wild shit. So we'll keep our eye on, of course, college basketball. We'll get more into that, obviously, once the NFL winds down as well. Next game we up on our schedule was the one that actually ended up being somewhat close, and of course it bit us in the ass because we were going for the Lions to take care of business. They did win, but not by enough. They had to get a late push and win. They were kind of controlling the game, I thought, early on. They had some good plays early. The running game was working well for them. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs both got in the act a little bit. But they let the Rams kind of make some plays and hang around, but then ultimately did get it done. 24-23 ended up being the final. So we got axed by the line there because the Lions were giving 3. So the Rams, and that was, really the only game of the weekend that was any kind of interest to be had. And even that, I was still kind of like, you kind of had that feeling that the Lions were going to pull it out somehow. And I guess personally, most folks that have seen the pain that they've endured were kind of for that.
Well, of all the games, of course, there are some unexpected outcomes, but this is honestly the one that actually kind of pissed me off because how many times does a team win a game by 1 friggin' point,
Exactly.
And not only that, the team that's been the best against the spread this season of any team in the league, actually went back and looked. The last time they won by a point was the season opening win against the Chiefs. So they've done it one other time this year, and the time that that we go ahead and say they can do it, they don't. That's the nature of the business. If you want to make your predictions, that's kind of what you got to expect. But cool for that city. They've like you said, been through a lot, and if any fan base deserves a little bit of happiness, they're up there among many of those tortured cities. So it was good to see them get a little bit of a fun night there, and even Eminem had to come out for the 8 Mile with him. So that was cool to see, another musician at the game other than the one we keep seeing.
Yeah, no doubt. Now everybody's calling for that matchup too, so we'll see if that happens. But so Lions get it done. The other one then, of course, was the Bills and the Steelers. They got pushed back. They had to move it back because of the weather. And then the Bills ended up getting it done. Unfortunately, they had a late score. It was like 6 minutes left in the game to make the margin what it was. And they win it by a final of 31-17. We were going with the Steelers because they were getting 9.5 points, thought they would stay with it. And I think, had the game not started the way it did, had they not turned the ball over a couple of times early like they did, they probably easily stay within that and make it a pretty darn interesting game. They still kept pace with them pretty much the rest of the way after that, but it was just enough to let the Bills cover.
Well, yeah, and you would have thought the weather would have played into their hands of making it a closer game, but the turnovers, that's basically what it boiled down to, and they were given a very short field. And I don't know, Buffalo's one of those teams that, of course, you're gonna look at later, but that's the team that you would probably least like to play right now if you're in the AFC. They're kind of what we thought they would be earlier, starting the season. And of course they wouldn't be in the seeding they're in right now if they play like that all year. But that's kind of what you expected from Buffalo before the season started, and that's what you're getting now. So, that might be one of those teams that goes on a run here. It seems like at least every other year, if not every year, wild card team kind of makes a run at things, or a team that plays on that first wild card weekend, I should say, not a wild card team, but seems to make a run at the Super Bowl. So they might be one to watch this season.
Kind of the opposite of the other team in the division that they had to beat at the end of the year in Miami. They were started off really poor and now have really gotten good at the end of the season. So yeah, good for them. So we missed on that one, and then of course we finished it off with another thud. With the Philadelphia Eagles. They were giving 3 points, and they needed to get a lot because they did not show up to the game pretty much. Bucks routed them 32-9 is the final. And, I had my cousin say to me that day, he's like, "You want to go with the Bucks?" And I was like, I think I just got this feeling that I think the Eagles are going to put it together. Come playoff time, they're going to get it together, going to win and move on. But obviously, I think there's a lot more going on there behind the scenes than anybody kind of had an inkling to, and that locker room wasn't what it was, early in the year, and they really took a fall there at the end of the season.
Yeah, I was kind of, on the side of it was almost like the Bucks were kind of had it there for the taking, but there were so many, talking heads that were saying, "Oh, Bucks got this," which they're usually. Whatever, if the whole set takes a team, you take the other team.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
kind of the way it goes. But I did, we said on the show that I thought the Bucks were, a live dog and had a chance there. Just the way that they had ended the season. Of course, the way it played out was similar to the other games. Nothing what I expected. I thought if the Bucks were going to win, they're going to have to, almost play a perfect game and kind of come from behind, maybe get a late score or a late stop. But once they stopped that tush push. You knew it was it was going to be a long day for Philly, and I think that's the key. What you said is it's not really on the field what the problem is. There's some stuff internally, and I'm honestly surprised that Coach still has his job as of right now. Of course, that could change by the time we even post this in the next day or so. So that's one to keep an eye on because he really lost that team and lost them fast. I mean, to go from 10-1 and almost a surefire number one seed to that it'd be hard to survive that for any coach, especially somebody with the lack of experience that coach has.
Yeah, and it's just wild how the game can be and how the sport can go, because you go from a guy that's coaching in the Super Bowl the year before to now being hated by his city essentially and wanting to get kicked out the door. That was another thing we're going to bring up here quick as well, is that obviously that fan base is one that has always been known for not being forgiving for anything and always a Johnny come lately, what have you done for me lately? But yeah, there was a little fan interaction there at the end of the game telling Mr. Sirianni that in no clearer words that you're going to be shown the door.
Yeah, I mean, we're all for expressing your fandom and having a good time, but they've kind of made a name for themselves, and they don't. I mean, at some point, you're just an a-hole. That's kind of what was my thought of it. It's like it's one thing to be pissed off, and you rightfully so. You should be disappointed in your team, but I don't know. You just get so much. You get in you think you pay $500 for a seat and you can do whatever the hell you want. I know that's just not the way it is, and that's the situation we got in, or someone wants to record it and get whatever you call it, Instagram famous, or I don't know whatever the hell the term is these days. But I don't know. It's just the guy's a total jackass, and I mean I don't know. I wish hopefully he got arrested or one of the Bucks fan knocked him out or hopefully he got something.
Yeah. Well, and obviously that's a sad kind of narrative on how sports in our society kind of have gone a little bit, because for some reason fans and parents, when it comes to the lower levels of youth sports, kind of feel entitled that they can express themselves in any way that they feel, and that's not how it should be. We should just have the contests on the floor or the field. Enjoy it, root for your team, be upset, that's fine, but don't make anybody else part of your experience yourself, and move on to the next day, because we all got more important shit in our lives than whatever happened in the game. But sometimes people just take it a little bit too far.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways to voice your opinion. I mean, don't go to the damn games, don't travel however many miles Philly to Tampa is, honestly, the only way to speak as a fan these days, it seems like, is with your pocket, with your wallet, with your money. That's, I know we talked about, the accessibility and not being a big deal, but if you really are pissed off about this streaming and this Peacock and all the Amazon Prime and all that, don't pay for the service. I mean, I know you want to watch the games, but maybe go support a local establishment, a locally owned sports bar, where you can, give your money to them. And, there's ways around it, and you can still watch the games.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard a lot of people, do just that. Go somewhere to watch because they didn't have it, or, whatever. There were ways around it. I found a way to sign up for a free service for a trial that I got it for a few, days or whatever, and then now I'm going to cancel it. So there you go. Figure it out. But yeah, that's another thing we were going to bring up, obviously, because it was, a lot of people thought it was unfortunate, but obviously our society and technology in the world is evolving and changing, and this is kind of the way some of this stuff is already gone. But a lot of people obviously bought into it and paid for it. And then the thing that was really annoying, though, the next day is because somehow NBC had 1 million games over the weekend. I don't know how they paid for all the wildcard games. But the next day they had another game. And, of course, in the middle of it, they have a little spiel that Tirico has to read talking about how this is a monumental event. This many people streamed the game, and it was the most watched internet thing ever. And we had the most internet traffic ever on this day. And most people were buying into NFL content that day. And it's like fans were having absolutely none of it. They got roasted online for it, obviously, because it's just a joke. I mean, you force people to do it. You thought this was what's going to happen, and then you're going to try to spin it into your positive, oh, this is the way the world's going kind of thing. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like you said, you basically say, give me $5, and someone gives you $5 and say, I got $5. I mean, of course you did. That was the only option for most people outside of, a few cities. So yeah, to brag about it was a little odd. It was interesting to see those numbers. I'm, still curious about how that's all figured.
Yeah.
Even since streaming's come about, how, it's always been a bit of a guessing game, even with, Nielsen ratings and things of that sort. But it would be kind of interesting to see how they even figure the streaming type of numbers. But I think it's more about, like, if if you are against it, you have to speak with your money, and the fans just line up and I'll pay $80 for parking. Okay, I'll pay it. $100 for this. Okay, well, I guess I really want to go. And it's like at some point you got to just draw the line somewhere. I understand. Like there's certain things I used to do that I don't do anymore because it just got too expensive, or I don't think it's really worth that money. So at some point you kind of just have to leave it there and just maybe miss out on an experience, but you have to have a little bit of principle about it too.
Yeah, that's true. It's not going to change unless you force that change. Obviously, this was a big experiment for NBC. They wanted to do this. Somebody was going to do it at some point. Obviously, we'd already gotten to that a little bit with the whole Amazon Thursday deal. But
honestly, and that was more of where I was at with it. That was the kind of the time I was like, what the, know. And no one said no. You didn't hear hardly anything about that. Was because that's a $15 a month subscription, and I mean, I guess I've just always kind of been an anti-Amazon guy, so it's easy for me to balk at that. But and then that wasn't the uproar that Peacock has been. That's the things that I don't really get, and I think it's just because a lot of people already had Amazon, so they didn't care.
Yeah.
And I guess I already had Peacock, so I didn't care. So I guess it's just all personal preference. And, maybe NFL could do something about keeping it in house and you can get an NFL subscription and they just, play nice, but that's never going to happen. So,
Well, and what's so funny is looking at such a short time frame where we have gone, because I remember, and I was one of these people that was absolutely pissed and thought it was ridiculous when ESPN decided that Monday Night Football was a cable decision. We were so used to being on ABC or being in accessible television for everyone that people thought that was ridiculous. Now we've gone to the point where you can't even find it on a television station. So this is crazy how far it jumps and how quickly. Obviously, technology is a big part of that, and who knows? This is all going to get morphed into something way different than we know what it is right now. Too, I'm not a visionary to know what that is. If I was, I'd make a lot of money. But it's very interesting to see how it changes. The one thing I don't understand, I guess, about this particular instance is, yeah, you had some great numbers, but what would those numbers have been had you done it on that platform and had it available on a channel that everybody in the world can access as well? Because it obviously would have been a lot more. So why are you holding your, me from a media mind, why are you holding your advertisers back from a larger audience? They're kind of, these people are picking and choosing too.
Well, not only that, how do you, within that, how do you really the monetary gain if you're getting someone like that you get a free trial option?
Yeah.
Is it worth getting somebody to sign up for a week to just cancel it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not profiting off that, so it's really hard to, I guess what's the end game? Just to say that you had 23 million watch it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, and I guess obviously the service that I ended up finding was there was a deal with Instacart, which in my area doesn't mean a damn thing anyways, because I can't, not something I'm gonna use. But obviously they're kind of banking on the fact that, well, enough people are going to see this, maybe they'll actually try the service because they have this trial now too, and they'll get bought into it. Or of course you always rely on the fact that a number of people will forget that they ever signed up anyways. But this one was different too, because I didn't even have to input any financial information, so it's not like they're going to be able to charge me anyways. So interesting. I don't know where this all goes. It'll be fun to watch and see and involve, and hopefully eventually at the end of the day it's going to be something we're all happy about, and it's going to be easily accessible. But at the time, that's not where we're at yet.
Well, I think it's okay to do certain things as long as you just come out, say it and make it available to people that want it. And more of the whole thing of streaming was to be pick and choose, and sometimes we're still more of in that cable frame where you're not really picking and choosing. So at least make it a true a la carte type thing, and then we're good with it.
Yeah. Well, and the world's about to change in that front too, because obviously ESPN's already come out and said they're going to go to a streaming subscription based model at some point. So we'll see how it changes when that time comes. So that's how the games went here this weekend. That's kind of the topics we had to touch on as far as the NFL world is concerned. So we're going to move on into this week's contest here in the divisional round and give you some picks and try to, obviously do a little bit better than we did last week. You got an overtime game to keep your eye on over there too. So
If it looks like I'm sweating, it's because I am.
I see the bullets running down your face.
Yeah, jeez. I might have a couple. Hopefully, I'm not hitting the bottle after this game. Well, at least if it's in a celebratory manner, at least I won't mind hitting it. But if you see me just friggin' take it to the head, it's probably a bad thing.
Hey, the rack's a tough place to play. Okay.
Yeah. So they say.
That's what they say. Interesting venue for sure. So this week we got a couple of games obviously split up for each day of the weekend. Saturday we will start things off with the Houston Texans on the road to take on the top seed who's been waiting in the Baltimore Ravens. 3:30 kickoff. Ravens a 9-point favorite as I see it right now. 43.5 is the number. You kind of talked about it earlier, SJ. CJ Stroud's on a heater. Is he going to be able to keep that going here against a good Baltimore team?
Yeah, that's the I guess $1 million question here is be hard to say, and the way they looked last week, it's hard to pick against them, And even, we've seen in the past the team that has the week off doesn't always come out looking the best. At the same time, I do think over the course of 17 weeks, or I guess it's 18 weeks, 17 games now, Baltimore has proven that they're the best team I think the best team in the league over the course of the year. I still am a little bit iffy. That's a little bit high of a spread to go with. So based upon how well Houston's offense played last week, and I think Baltimore has put up enough points this year, I'm going to go with the total, and I'm going to take the overs. I think that's just the smartest play considering how well Houston played last week. I could see them, being within a touchdown, and obviously that would cover the spread. And I'm not crazy enough to pick them to win. I wouldn't be totally shocked though after last week, but at the same time that seems a bit of a stretch, even for how well they played last week.
Yeah, you got to kind of think that maybe we're going to come down a little bit here from that high, taking on a good team on the road. A different kind of situation for Stroud to deal with. I do think he probably doesn't play quite as well as he did last week because that was just pretty incredible. I'm with you, and I think this is. I'm going to kind of show my hand here a little bit. I think this is the theme of the weekend. I like over in this game. I agree. I think the Texans have shown that they can put up some points here lately. Ravens can do enough as well. I think the Ravens win. I do think it probably ends up being a little bit closer maybe than people expect, but I still don't feel super comfortable about that line either way. So I'm with you. I'm going with the overs as well. We're going to shake hands on that one.
All right, guess we'll shift over to the nightcap here, and this is straight out of 1995, maybe 97 or so. Kind of old, the old friends meeting again. Green Bay at San Francisco. It was like a 7:15 kickoff, at least Central Time. That is. Mm-hmm. What is that? 5:15 out west. 9.5 point favorite as I see it right now, and the total is 50.5. Were you looking at that overs again? That seems a little high there, though.
Yeah, I think actually this is the one where I'm probably going to stray here a little bit, and I don't know. People probably are going to think I'm nuts because the way that the game played out last week, obviously the Packers played incredible. Jordan Love was on fire, but I feel like this sets up as like a comeback down to earth type of deal. I just think the Packers are going to come down a peg the way that they played last week. Their defense has been so iffy throughout the year, and now you take on a team that's got so many weapons all across the field in San Francisco. It hurts the 49ers a little bit. I think they are sitting there waiting, but they certainly have been a team that's been banged up here and there, so a little time to heal probably isn't a bad thing for them either. So even though that number is high, I think the 49ers are going to pull away at the end of this game and win it by a couple of touchdowns. So I'm going to go with San Francisco to cover that line, even though it's a big number.
Well, if you're crazy to pick that, I guess I'm crazy too, because I'm right there with you. I get how well that Green Bay played last week. We saw it. At the same time, San Francisco's about in that Baltimore realm for me, where the fact that just over the long haul of the season, they've proven to be a tough out. And I mean, their last 7 wins were by at least 10 points. You got to figure that's going to kind of carry over into the postseason. And like I said, straight out of the mid '90s, this is a rivalry that dates back. It's going to be a hard fought game, and they're going to be ready to play. There's no overlooking or overconfident. I don't think that's going to factor into this game at all. I just think San Francisco's too powerful of an attack for Green Bay to stop, and they had their, like you said, kind of come back to earth moment. Just I don't want to take anything away from Green Bay, but I think it was a little bit more about what Dallas was than what Green Bay is last week. So yeah. I'm with you there. I like that 9.5. I think it could be it might be a little bit of a snoozer come third quarter on Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, the way things played out this past weekend, was it a little bit about that division too, because of the way the Eagles and the Cowboys both kind of laid turds when they got the chance. So then we move on to Sunday. The early game on Sunday will be the Detroit Lions and that rabid fan base ready to host another game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've got the Lions as a 6.5 point favorite, where I saw it 48.5. being the number. What are we thinking here, SJ?
Yes, I'm pretty confident in Detroit, but I'm still a little pissed off at the same time that they, didn't cover that 3 points last week. So what makes me think they're going to have 6.5 points? Um, and Tampa Bay had some pretty explosive plays last week. What touchdown passes of 44 yards and 56 yards. And Detroit did give up we got 357 passing yards last week. So they weren't exactly stout against the pass, but they still held the Rams to just 23 points. So with that offense, I mean that's impressive considering those numbers that they were able to hold them to just 23 points. So with all that being said, I like the unders in this one. I think it's going to be kind of ugly, a little bit of a dogfight. I do expect Detroit to win, but based upon last week, it's more of a sour grapes thing for me. I'm not willing to pick them with that big of a number. Maybe if it was 4, I might give them a shout, but 6.5, I don't know that they will cover that. I think they could win, but I don't think they're going to cover that.
All right, yeah, I went back and forth on this game as I looked at it. I think that the Bucs obviously have proven they can play well in certain moments. Now, was it the opponent again? That's what I'm also kind of concerned about. It was just a couple weeks before where they needed to secure their playoff spot, and they scored 9 points on 3 field goals. So, you're probably onto something there with the under a little bit. I think they're going to get close to that number, so it's going to be flirting a little bit. I don't know. I just got this feeling that at some point at the end of the game, it's probably going to be fairly close, but then the Lions are going to score that late touchdown to secure the win and win the game. But this time, I think it's going to be close enough that they do cover that 6.5. So I'm going to take a flyer on the Lions being able to secure things a little bit better than they did last week and actually win outright and cover that 6.5. So I'll go with Detroit there.
All right, this is the one you've probably been waiting for here. These teams maybe played once or twice in the past.
They kind of know each other a little bit.
Yeah. Right now, Kansas City at Buffalo, but night cap to the weekend, 5:30 p.m. our time, Central Time. That's all we care about. When people tell you what time is it, and they say 7 Eastern, I don't care what time it is in New York. Tell me what time the game is where I live. So that's what I go by. I just say it's a 5:30 kick because that's where I'm going to be watching it. I don't have those and I'm not Batman. I don't got clocks for every time zone in my kitchen. So I stick with the Central Time zone. That's where I live. So that's what I go by. Bills -2.5, total at 45. What do you think here?
Yeah, this is a fun game. I'd be lying if I said that, I felt very comfortable about the Chiefs winning this game because certainly the Bills have gotten quite a few of these matchups. I'm just lucky enough that in the big moments, it's been the Chiefs that have come out on top and when it's come playoff time. So that has been the good scenario. I do think that the Chiefs are going to find a way to win this game. I just got a feeling that there's going to be a couple of guys, kind of the narrative, and again, it's one of those what's driving the narrative kind of things. People are starting to, I think, to write off Kansas City a little bit. They were looking for things throughout the year. Dropping passes obviously has been a huge issue, but I think a couple of guys are going to take care of the ball a little bit better come this matchup. The Bills are just so reliant on how well Josh Allen plays. Obviously, if he plays well, I think they can win, and they probably will if he plays really well. Now, if he makes a couple of mistakes like he's prone to do sometimes, then I think the Chiefs absolutely win this game. I think the Chiefs do find a way to maybe get a turnover and win it, but I'm not going to go to that line. I think this is a classic overs type of situation. 45.5 seems pretty low for two offenses that can be pretty good at scoring, even though the weather conditions might be absolute crap again here. I don't know how that's all going to play out because it sounds like they're getting a boatload of snow again here this week in Buffalo. But I do think there's going to be some explosive plays, and I would like taking that over of 45.5.
Yeah, I wanted to pick the overs as well, but after both of these teams in different games have kind of bit me in the ass with the overs. I mean, they and both most they've done their part, but it's the opponent. So I see it's kind of like one of those situations where it seems like there's no way they're not going to score that. So it seems too obvious, and
Yeah,
sometimes when it's too obvious, it kind of scares me. So that's the only reason I didn't take that.
I get that.
The two things that kind of stand out to me was what I mentioned earlier. The fact the settling for field goals by the Chiefs was a little bit, kind of stood out, and that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, if they're able to get in the end zone, no problems there. If they're not, I think that will definitely be a big factor in this game. I guess I'm gonna three things because I think I said two. The weather, who knows what the hell it's gonna be like. Got probably have fans out there, shoveling again. For the team there, cleaning out your own seat for $20 an hour. That's a hell of a deal there in upstate New York. But the Bills Mafia will do whatever they can to get to the game. So it's not the crowd's going to be a factor. It might just be a little ugly. And then I think this is just a gut feel. Could be wrong. Obviously, it's just a gut feel or just a thought that Bills are that team this year that is going to go on a run, and that's kind of what I'm based this on. It was 1 week and even before those weeks, but last week it's like they were just making some of the textbook plays that we've kind of been known for them that aren't exactly like a high risk type thing. It's getting the tight end out in the flat. Maybe just some misdirection type stuff. And it's not like you're asking them to complete a high difficulty type of play, but it's just consistently there, and there's always an open receiver. So I think they'll cover that 2.5. I do think the Bills will win, but this will definitely be one of those where I'm on the lower end of risking. The marbles will be more of a whiskey or type of not a high risk, high reward type of bet. But I'll take the Bills in this one. It just seems like the Chiefs have kind of had their number too. I think at some point that the changing of the guard could happen, and it could be this year, and that's kind of where I'm leaning on there. It's not a Either team could win. Both quality teams. I just think the Bills being at home maybe just gives them that little 3-point edge they need.
Yeah, and that's true. And these roles haven't been reversed. The Chiefs have hosted throughout Patrick Mahomes' career. So this is the first time. Obviously, that's one of the big talking points that he has to go on the road and play a playoff game in what is going to be certainly a hugely hostile atmosphere. What you alluded to does worry me a lot. Certainly as a Chiefs fan, they've got two really good tight ends in Kincaid and Knox that they work in a lot. That is a big part of their game. Keeping them in check is going to be a big priority for Kansas City to have some success. By the way, little shout out to my man. Iowa State alum A.J. Klein. He got called in the middle of the week last week and led the Bills in tackles come Saturday. He got to the facility on Wednesday, and then, well, I guess they played later. They didn't play the day they were intending. But, yeah, he led the team in tackles coming in off the street to play. So a heck of an effort by him. That's what's pretty cool when you get those kind of stories of guys, hanging around. Miami had to do the same thing. They brought in Justin Houston on a couple of days' notice because they had so many injuries, too. It's just
that's actually I wasn't making a dig earlier at Hard Knocks, but that's the stories I actually enjoy is the freaking the unsung guy type thing, the Mr. Irrelevant type stories, and but you kind of just get these even with the quarterback show on Netflix, people all of a sudden obsessed with Kirk Cousins. Oh yeah, I hope you feel the same way if he's the quarterback of your team throwing interceptions every other week. So like whatever, if you feel like you like this guy's personality, first of all, you don't really know him. Secondly, it's a freaking reality show that's not real at all. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the games here for the weekend. One thing that you kind of brought up there too that we do want to touch on. I guess I hate to end on a negative note, but
I'm pissed off now. Anyways, that
the damn rack got you, didn't it?
Game away, yeah.
Damn it.
Fucking Danny DeVito.
Those New Jersey folks are no fun. But something we were talking about beforehand that obviously, the NFL is certainly the biggest beast when it comes to probably any financial sector there may be. There's probably other industries that obviously make more money technology-wise and those types of things. But as far as entertainment value goes, the NFL is king in the United States of America. It's what it is. It gets the most eyeballs on it every single week. The top watch things every year are all these NFL games by miles compared to anything else. And That's kind of what drives their decisions, obviously, because it certainly isn't fan comfort or fan safety, as we saw this last weekend, when the National Weather Service is telling people in Kansas City that you pretty much shouldn't have any ounce of your skin exposed sitting at the game, and then they have the game anyways. That's one thing. And then in Buffalo, where you had these poor saps walking their way to the stadium to make a couple of bucks to scoop some snow out of the aisles, which was probably a mute point in a couple of days they did it anyways. It makes you wonder and question these decisions, because it certainly isn't about the right things when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I was getting to earlier. Just you kind of worried about the wrong things, and that seems like just a problem as a whole and in general with the society and culture. It's we're worried about downloading Peacock, but we'll risk in this situation. You're literally risking your health and safety
Yeah.
to go do something that stupid where you could watch it at home or do anything else. Go watch at a friend's house, whatever. Like there's no need to be out there, and everyone wants to be worried about being labeled soft or being scared if you cancel things or adjust times. But at some point, you got to use your head and some common sense. And of course, we don't want to cancel things or move things or adjust our schedules. But guess what? Sometimes you got to do shit you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just life in general. Like I don't think the NFL made their playoff schedule thinking, and on January, what was it, the 12th, 13th, there's going to be, negative 40-degree wind chills.
Yeah.
I don't think they planned on that. And maybe this is they never would, obviously, but maybe it brings a conversation of neutral site games or just only indoor hosts. Obviously that's a long shot, and that's something but there's a reason that college football plays all their championship events, the playoff at least, in climate controlled environments. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way to go, because who knows what can happen in that time of year. And it's just, it kind of takes out that conversation. I understand you want to be tough and act like it doesn't bother you, but that's the type of that's extreme stuff. You can't, there's no way that anybody can deal with that and not say it affects you. It's not a normal temperature. If that was the case, we'd all live on Antarctica.
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody lives there. So if you liked it that much, go ahead and move up there tomorrow. If it's that good, or
Yeah.
freaking Pluto or some shit like that.
Uh-huh.
Elon Musk will take you up there with his freaking flamethrower and what is that, the damn truck he's coming out with now.
Yeah.
You can hitch a ride with him.
There you go. The other thing too about, obviously it's pretty hard for them financially to make that call and say that we're not just going to play because it's so cold. And I kind of get a little bit of that. And obviously there's so many logistics that go into hosting an event like that just in general. It's just such a pain in the arse if you have to figure out how we're going to move this to another day. I get that. I totally understand that. But sometimes and it's not only the fans, like you're actually worried about the players too. Like Patrick Mahomes' helmet exploded because it was so damn cold. Like this isn't normal, and it probably isn't the thing that you should do. But at the end of the day, like you said, whether or not NBC decided we're still going to have this game and have them Peacock, it didn't matter if one damn fan was in the stands. You all decided this is stupid, we're going to stay home and watch it. They still would have done it. It would have been like a COVID year. Who cares? It's on TV. That's what they wanted. They wanted it on a platform. So yeah, you make that decision, I guess, and obviously everybody did based on their own thoughts and whatever. So they put themselves at risk if they did it. But it's interesting. It brings up, I guess, just kind of that moral dilemma of whether, what's important. In Buffalo, obviously, the travel part of it is the issue. It's not necessarily just being there. The temperature was not that terrible, but that much snow and the road conditions, people trying to travel and get there, you're obviously putting people at risk if they make that decision. And of course, on top of that, you're adding in the fact that these people probably paid $400, $500 for a damn ticket, so they're probably risking because they don't want to lose that money.
Oh, but don't worry, you could bring cardboard in with you to Arrowhead, and then you'd be just fine and dandy. That was the big talking point of they're letting fans bring in cardboard to stand on. I guess that was going to solve all the problems. Yeah, I mean it's up to the fans. I understand you don't want to reschedule it, and I guarantee all the the loudmouths on whatever outlet they're on that were saying, oh, if you cancel your softie move, I guarantee one of their fat asses wasn't standing outside
Nope.
for 1 second. So it's fine if you want to say that. Get out there and be with everybody else. But if you're not, just shut up about it. I wouldn't go. I mean, it'd have to be a damn serious life event for me to stand out in that type of weather. Like I was, maybe if one of our kids was playing it, I might do it, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, then you're probably going to be in a suite, so you can't say shit to somebody that's standing, up on the 300 level where it's, I can imagine how cold it was up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have admittedly gone to the two coldest games that were ever played at Jack Trice Stadium in Ames. Now, obviously, that was my decision, but at the same time, there wasn't a lick of wind when that was going on. The temperature, yeah, was not good, but there was not any wind going on. And if that was the case, I would 100% have said, nope, I am not doing this. Because it was okay for me to adapt and be bearable, yeah, that was fine. But when you're adding another 20 degrees to my feel, then yeah, I'm probably not making that decision. So it's always going to be a dilemma. It's always going to be a debate in these certain cities, and that's the way it is. We can get into a lot deeper of the weeds of why those reasons are, and there's a lot of you can bring in a lot of socioeconomic things when it comes to these places and why they don't have a dome stadium, because they're most of those types of venues are because they're venues for other things other than just football. So it's very interesting, but it's going to be something that I think gets looked at pretty hard after this year, because there was those situations that we had to make those decisions on. So we'll see. Might be again this weekend in Buffalo. Yeah. We'll find out. But pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on with the football world still. Obviously, those big headlines going on with college as well, and we'll keep our eye on those other jobs that are open and talk to you more about that next week. So still be plenty to talk about. And SJ, let's hope that we put a few more dollars in the right column here this weekend too.
Yeah, that's the plan. Like I said, I'll have probably some UFC picks up on after we get the typical weekly graphic of our picks from this show. But we'll watch for that. Anybody interested in UFC, and there's some big boxing events coming up here in the next few weeks as well. So we dabble in that as well. And that's more of college football, UFC, boxing. I'm definitely willing to put a little bit more stake on that and have a little bit more confidence in those picks.
Right. Yeah. And once we get past this NFL stuff, I'll dabble in a little college basketball. It's certainly, like we just discussed, a very volatile game, but there's some games you can pick out sometimes and have an idea about. So we'll get into that down the road. But follow SJ on Twitter at SJMBets, and that's where you'll find those picks that he's going to deliver to you. And then at Cherokee CP is my handle if you want to follow me there as well. We'll, of course, share the graphics like we mentioned, give you some other insight and info. Interact with us there as well. Sometimes it takes me a little prodding. Give me a little prodding, and I'll get back at you and get going there online. We'll share it, of course, on other platforms. You can listen to the podcast in multiple locations, Spotify being our main location. So if you're that person, you can go there. Otherwise, check out Google or Amazon. You can find us there as well. So we'd appreciate if you would like and subscribe and follow and give us ratings, and continue to have some fun with us and make some wagers along the way. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you another week for some more covers.